Hello there. Welcome in. Yes, welcome to the Afterlife. My name is Basil. I am here to help you in your journey to finding a new career here in the Afterlife, where careers are a little bit different. So, before we get started, I would like to know who you are, really, because, as a career advisor, I tend to get a lot of people. And, they come in all shapes and sizes, but most ghosts tend to be, how do I put it? Sad. They're very sad. And I really want to make sure that you understand that since you're now in the afterlife, you have been either killed, murdered, unjustly, had your life unjustly taken. Whatever the situation, that is done now. You have escaped the throes of capitalism within the living world. Now you must be within the throes of capitalism within the afterlife. So you must have a job. A job is very integral to every ghost. And unlike the living world, where you will one day, hopefully, maybe get to retire, in the afterlife, you live on for eternity and you never retire, so you always work. And injustice is simply a fact of life, or rather, on life. So, with that, let's go ahead and get through some of the real basics, yes? So, as I've said before, I am a career advisor, which means that you have been assigned to me. I cannot let you go until we figure out at least a few options as to what you will do with your afterlife, really. Because we just don't want you to be roaming the streets or anything like that. It's simply uncouth. So, here, let us discuss what is your name. Okay. Do you want to change that? It's a bit unfortunate. Okay, it's what it's a bit in ghost culture, which I know you're a ghost, so but you're a new ghost, so you don't really understand. In ghost culture, keeping your the same name as what you've had when you were dead, when you were alive, it's a bit uncanny, right? It makes other ghosts a bit uncomfortable, because really, if you have the same name, it's almost like they're trying to, when someone calls you, if someone talks to you, it'll feel like they're trying to reach across the rift and go into the land of the living. And no one wants to do that when they're not on the clock. So really, I would suggest changing your name. So if you would like a different name, now is the time. Okay. And, you are age of death, which basically just means how long has it been since you died. Now, I understand that, you've not been dead for very long. You were assigned to me. However, ghosts tend to be a bit interesting because when you die, there is a indeterminate amount of time before you actually arrive here at the, to get some counselling. So really, I need you to think back. Think, how long have you wandered? How long have you spooked, the passerbys of the living with no payment, really? You basically were giving away labour for free. So anyway, think about how long you might have already been dead. And well, let me ask a different question. If you're having a difficult time figuring that out, what was the last? What's your favorite type of jeans? Yes, jeans. Like the pants. The pants. Okay. So you're definitely a little bit older. That's fine. Okay, so let's figure out your level of bitterness. So how bitter are you? Did you die in a way that left a lot of unfinished business? Did you die in a way that left a lot of things unresolved? And are you bitter about that? Some people, they leave things unresolved, but they're kind of happy with that. They're happy to have things cut a little bit short. So really, from 1 to 10, what is your level of bitterness? Okay. And what is your level of anger? Similar, but a little bit different. Bitterness is a very passive emotion. Anger can be very active, and so we'd like to have that distinction. Okay. And could I get your residence of haunting? Yes, this is where you generally spend the most of your time. Okay. It's a very nice neighborhood, being honest. Yeah, for Halloween they really went all out, and I was really surprised because not a lot of ghosts tend to be very jazzed for Halloween, and that tends to be because it's very cliche, and so but it's for the little ghosts. The little ghosts are little forever, and so it's you kind of have to do it. Anyway, could I get your soul insurance? Oh, you don't know what that is? Well, you're right. You are, of course, new here. So soul insurance is basically the way that insurance works, except in the real world, except that if you don't have insurance in the real world and you get hurt or something happens, you might have to pay a lot of money. If you don't have insurance here and something happens or you do a bad job or something, you then become sort of an indentured servant to one of the higher ups here in the afterlife. It is not a very just system, but it is the system we have. And so what soul insurance does is that it takes a little bit of the soul you earn, because of course every job here in the afterlife creates a certain amount of souls, right? They harvest these souls, and souls act as currency. It will take just a small amount of the souls to keep it in the back pocket, just in case something happens, and then they will pay for it for you. Yes, absolutely. And we do have people that work day and night to make sure that the insurance agencies are fed and, in the proverbial sense, of course, no one actually eats anything. We are ghosts after all. But they are ready and willing to help. Yes, absolutely. It does take about 48 hours for you to actually get on a phone with an agent of some kind. Another 48 hours if you actually want to file that claim. So you're on the phone for a total of 48 hours plus another 48 hours. So 4 days in total. But after that, it's smooth sailing. You simply have 2 weeks of just a ritual summoning that you have to do to make sure you get back some of the souls, because when you put the souls back in your back pocket, it's not a the souls aren't liquid anymore. They're invested, so you have to do a ritual summoning to make sure it comes back and is liquid again so that you can use it, right? Yeah, so you understand. Okay, so I'll make sure to sign you up for that. And really, there's only really one option. It is owned by a mega soulionaire, and it is quite unfortunate, but that's okay. That's all right. Okay, so let us discuss careers then, right? Let's move on from the basics. And let's discuss how careers. Careers here in the afterlife, they're a little bit different. They don't work the same. So, obviously, as I mentioned, we do operate on souls. So every job in some way or form harvests souls, right? Now, I say that, but you do have administrative positions, managers, higher ups, and those kinds of ghosts do tend to not harvest souls, but their labor is just as important. If a manager didn't exist, then the people doing the work would simply continue doing the work, and the manager didn't really need to exist. But it's really important for the vibes. It's incredibly important to make sure the vibes are crisp and good. Okay, and just to give you a bit of an idea, because since you've only been wandering for a while and you haven't actually joined the afterlife properly, souls are a bit like ecstasy, if you know what that is in the living world, but without any of the downsides. Which is why it works as currency. But you need to understand that, because you can get really addicted to it, and it really addiction is not really a bad thing. No. Addiction is not a downside of ecstasy, nor is it a downside of souls. If anything, it is a positive side, because if you have souls and you are addicted to it, then you will be a better worker, because you'll want more, right? So it's a win-win situation. And you, of course, need to understand that you don't have any basic needs anymore. Eating, drinking, using the toilet, sleep. That's all of these things are simply unnecessary like here in the afterlife. So when you get souls, the ecstasy aspect is the thing that fuels everything. So, because otherwise, how else are people and higher ups and corporate officials, how are they going to string you along if you don't have something that you need, right? And so getting you addicted is actually very important for them. But of course, it's all very good. It's all very good and very wonderful here in the afterlife. So with that, now that you have a basic understanding, a basic idea of the afterlife and how it works, just picking up off your vibe, how much you're talking to me, whatnot, I do have a few options here. I'm going to skip this one right here. I don't think you need that. No. Just these 5 options will be good for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They're going to be perfect. Of course, I can pick up on certain aspects of you based off of how your ghostliness, but you, of course, are the only one that knows yourself the best. So I'm going to give you a few, ideas as to what this job will entail, and you decide whether that will be best for you. Okay? So the first one will be human possessor. It's right there in the name. You are a ghost that possesses humans fairly regularly. You use them to harvest some of their souls, not enough so that they die. We are not evil, but just enough that they're left with some chronic disease of some kind. It's really it's important, because we want them to stay living, because souls tend to regenerate if the person is alive, but they have to go through some medical trauma, because if they don't go through medical trauma, then the soul, it just doesn't have the same flavor. So if you are going to be a human possessor, one of the key aspects is that you're going to have to be extroverted. As a ghost, you're going to be possessing people, you're going to be in the heads, and they're going to speak to you. And if you have trouble speaking to people, if you don't like making friends, it's going to be a lot more difficult, because as much as you want to possess people, they do have to want you to get in just a little bit, It's not completely involuntary. So you need to be extroverted, and you need to be charming enough to actually convince them, right? So if you feel like you're not very charming, if you feel like you're not particularly convincing, this might not be the job for you. But let's keep going, right? Say you are extroverted, then this might be good. A human possessor tends to be a jack of all trades. So, because you're a human possessor, you tend to have to go about day-to-day life in the living world as the person that you've possessed, right? So you could be, a grandmother that quilts, or you could be, a high-powered business person, or you could be a janitor. You can go through many different, or a farmer. Really, anything is in the air, and so it's all up in the air. So you have to be able to be competent in a lot of things, just so that you don't get caught. Because if you get caught and the person is killed, then that is a no-no, right? Because no souls are getting harvested if the person dies. Now the souls get reabsorbed and they become what? Another ghost. It's unfortunate. So another thing is that you as a ghost, if you are identified as an ADHD baddie, then this is definitely something to think about, because a human possessor, you're always doing something different. Your attention is constantly sporadic. You are doing many different things, and your attention is constantly going everywhere. It is very good for unmedicated ADHD baddies. I would also say it's very good for non-binary people. So if you yourself identify as non-binary or don't particularly identify with very strongly with any gender, this could be very, very good for you, because you could, just switch back and forth, have a few bodies that you just, go through just to see how it's like, right? And of course, some of the more negative aspects of the human possessor is they tend to be a bit indecisive. They don't like to make decisions. They, because they are very charming and extroverted, they don't want to let people down, and so they end up being kind of irresponsible. They kind of end up being indecisive. They don't want to actually make a decision, because making a decision might mean making someone upset, and they would never want to make someone upset, because what if they want to possess that person? So it's just an aspect of it, right? And they're a bit self-centered, right? Because when you are possessing someone, you are, of course, the center of that person, right? They revolve around you now. So sometimes they lose their sense of self, and they become very focused on themselves due to that. So just something to keep in mind for the human possessor. Yes, so that is option number 1. Now, option number 2 is going to be a haunter. Yes, a haunter, if you are in a house or a mansion, that is the place that you haunt, right? Instead of possessing a person, you're more so dedicated to a particular place. Now, one of the main things and one of the main draws of being a haunter is that you get a safe space, you get a place to just call your own. There are some living people there, but that's neither here nor there. It is your own, and it is a safe place for you. It tends to be that people who want to be haunters, they have a big fascination with objects. They like to tinker with things. They like to, push things around or pull down curtains, and they like to fidget, right? They're very big fidgeters. And they love to understand how things operate, right? So, a haunter, you might have heard of this through your living days, but, a television, turning on and off, right? That's just a haunter really figuring out how the television works, right? Or they might just be fascinated with the idea of turning it on and off. It's really just a playfulness. They have a playfulness about them. And due to that, they do tend to be a bit nerdy, right? A bit geeky, a bit nerdy. They like to, I don't think I've ever seen a haunter without sort of a bag of tools, because what ends up happening is that they're very big fixers. They love to fix things. So if something's broken in a house, right, the living people don't know how to fix it. They've determined it's broken. The haunter will fix it for them, right? They're very helpful in that way, but inadvertently, and I think that is why we kind of tolerate them as ghosts. Because the ghost is doing these things, it does end up spooking the living people, which ends up harvesting some of their souls. And so it's really a win-win, right? They get to enjoy their little fun activities, their fun hobbies, and, we get to feast on the souls. So it's very good. Yes, so that is the haunter. There's not many downsides except that you're a bit of you're a bit nerdy. It's really what it is. Okay, so let us discuss the Gravedigger next, right? Yes, of course, the Gravedigger. Gravedigger really just goes to the source, right? So like I said, when someone dies, their soul ends up becoming the ghost. But a Gravedigger goes through a bunch of different bodies, digs them up, and because right as they're rotting, there is some, if I'm being honest, I did fail my chemistry classes, so I don't quite understand, but there is some form of reaction happening, and so souls are being created, right, as the sort of rotting process is happening, and so the Gravedigger, his main purpose is to harvest the souls off of dead bodies. Now, what I will say is that a gravedigger tends to be very buff. They tend to be very strong, and this tends to be because they have to go through layers of crust, layers of earth, and they don't tend to just go through graves that are freshly buried, right? They do go to graves that are very, very old, because even the bones can sometimes have souls in them. So it's very, very impressive. But they are a bit introverted, right? You get your own area that you grave dig, and most of the people that you end up talking to are other dead people. And of course we are all dead, but they're dead, right? They don't even have a soul or like a ghost for you to actually discuss things with. So it's a lot of time to yourself. It's very good if you want to listen to podcasts, if you want to listen to music, if you just want to be in your own head. Perfect for that kind of thing. They are, of course, considered the more of the blue-collar worker, right? The haunter, the human possessor, those are more the artistic professions here in the afterlife. But the gravedigger is more, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of person. And so they tend to be a bit more regressive in terms of social aspects. They don't really know how to discuss things with people, and they tend to put their foot in their mouth very frequently. But you kind of have to forgive them because they're trying their best, and sometimes their heart is in the right place, but they just don't know how to express themselves. But, and this is very important, and this is something that you're going to have to encounter, and you know yourself better than I, so gravediggers are very, very fun when drunk. So it is one of those things where get them in a situation, get them hooked on some ecstasy, and by that I do mean souls, and they will start blabbering, and it's quite a hoot. So that is the gravedigger. Let's move on to the fog creator. Now, what is that? A fog creator. So if you think back to your living days, I'm certain that you know the concept of fog. What you don't know is that a lot of fog is there to create an eerie vibe, yes? And, humans have done a lot to use that to great effect within the horror movies and the TV shows and whatnot. But a fog creator is a ghost that uses fog to create an eerie vibe, right? That spooks people, not based off of their presence, but based off of what they can't see, right? What they're simply put, just the fact that it's very foggy. So, what kind of person is a fog creator? Someone who might be in the woods and create fog for a group of teenagers wandering through, right, in the middle of the night or something like that. They're theatre kids. Right, a fog creator is a theatre kid. And you understand what a theatre kid is like, right? They're annoying. They are the centre of themselves and the world. And to be honest, every fog creator that I have ever seen has wanted to actually set up plays, but nobody in the afterlife really enjoys plays because we're all dead anyway. So we've lived on for eternity. What tale can you tell in eternity in which we haven't heard before? So, but of course, the fog creators do tend to have that hobby of creating, of writing plays and putting them on, and it is truly a disservice to all of ghost kind. They do tend to love to be helpful. The fog creators do love to be in the back lines, right? They love to know that they are setting a scene, right? That is really, really brilliant for them. I will say, as I said, they are annoying, but really the main thing that really makes me despise them is that they pretend to be oppressed. And, in the afterlife, it is, there are injustices. Yes, there are social, hierarchies, and I did not create them. And yes, it is for eternity. So, you simply can't wait for people to change. You have to change people's minds, or whatever the case is. They like to pretend to be oppressed, mainly because they think that, because they are fog creators, that they are, they are lesser, and no one thinks of them as lesser. They just think of them as annoying, and that's not the same. So, for creator will be number 4. Number 5 is our last one that I think will potentially fit with you. No offense on the fog creator. I don't particularly, I don't find you annoying yet, right? So you still have hope. But the 5th one is going to be the crow instructor. Now, if you think about it, you don't see many crows, and when you see them, a lot of people have this sort of a chilly feeling about them, right? They don't really like them. And that is on purpose, right? Ghosts have trained crows to give off an eerie vibe. And so the crow instructor ghost is not very common, but they are a little bit of an oddball, right? They mainly want to discuss things with birds. They love birds. They're very sweet, but they're just not very talkative, and not in the same way as the Gravedigger. The Gravedigger is not very talkative because they don't really know how to talk. The crow instructor knows how to talk, but prefers not to. And so they're very good at. Or let me say this: they're very good at being quiet, letting you make a fool of yourself by explaining something, and then throwing out a one-liner that absolutely demolishes your entire being. And as a ghost, your being is already very flimsy, so it's truly, it's very devastating. I'll just say that. And I will say, the only really bad thing about the crow instructor is that they do tend to be a bit cliche. They like all the things that everybody else likes, and they don't like the things that everybody else doesn't like. The main thing that they enjoy is birds and their crows, and then everything else is very blah. So it's really, if you identify as being blah, then I say go with the crow instructor. It's you can't go wrong. So, of those 5, the human possessor, the haunter, the gravedigger, the fog creator, and the crow instructor, which one do you think would fit best? Okay. I'll get you started on that then. And if it doesn't work out, you do have one other try with one of these other jobs. Otherwise, you do go into indentured servitude, as I mentioned before. So, otherwise, we will make sure that you get your job very soon. You are free, of course, to go back to your residence of haunting. But if, say, the residence of haunting isn't really where you want to be anymore, if one of those jobs have, in particular, piqued your interest, then you're welcome to stay here. I'm going to go through a few more of my people that I need to advise, and then I'll come back to you and we'll get you set up, and you'll be on your way. Okay? Okay, then, well, let us reconvene later, yes? Okay. Bye-bye.